Welcome to Production Value Matters, the business event podcast, brought to you by Byrne Production Services. Here, we explore the different ways business events can bring value to your organization, the latest technological advances in the event space, as well as providing you with actionable strategies to make a business event a success. Let's create an exceptional event experience.
Welcome to a very special episode of Production Value Matters, the business events podcast, where we are recording on location in Punta de Mita, Mexico, at the Conrad for GDP Connections. And joining me today is Catherine Chaulet, the CEO and president of GDP Global, who we had the pleasure of interviewing back in February about the GDP Global event survey. And so as a follow-up, we're really delighted to be welcomed here to meet some of your attendees, to speak to some of your board members. And I'm really excited about this follow-up conversation. I was in your keynote yesterday. There's some very interesting data that and some facts that you brought up that I'd love to dive into. But first of all, thank you for having me, Catherine.
Matthew, I'm so happy that you're here because I think it's so critical for you to hear directly from so many meeting planners, so many DMCs, so many hospitality professionals in one setting. So hopefully you were able to...
It has been truly fascinating. This exercise that we just did about the creative workshop, it was interesting. I don't usually work directly with DMC partners. We're usually brought in sort of after the fact, but to see their creative process and how they developed a program in this little 20 minutes, it was very high pressure. And, but it was fascinating to see that working process. So what have you been up to since we met in February?
Our industry is so busy. So certainly working on connection, making sure that the content in particular is meaningful to the attendees. So gathering a lot of information from both our DMCs, our board members, client feedback, surveys, so that, again, we are as relevant to the audience. And it's also working on trade shows that are happening and of course dealing with the day-to-day business, which is to connect meeting planners with DMCs and make sure that in this extremely fast-paced environment that we can help as best we can.
Excellent. And so how does Global DMC Partners help clients deliver impactful events with tight budgets?
So it's all about finding the right partners for a client. So it's tight budgets, but it's also very tight deadlines. So being able to connect a client with a DMC and the client having the confidence that the DMC, first of all, is solid and can deliver the program. This is a huge time saving for meeting planners. So helping them in that way, this is great. The tight budget, it's finding a partner that is going to be able to have this discussion with you and that you can trust will not necessarily reduce quality because the budget is tight, but to the contrary, will propose options that are very high quality within the budget.
Absolutely.
So you need, the secret to success here is the right partner, the client, and the connection between the two being strong and trustworthy.
Yes.
You know you're in good hands.
Absolutely. And so what are some key strategies you recommend for balancing those budget constraints and the event quality?
So first of all, I would say the sooner you can start working with the DMC, planning with the DMC, the better. Usually, if it is so last minute, your options are reduced. So that usually increases the rate. So the sooner, the better. Tag the DMC on, task the DMC, on finding options that you may not necessarily know in terms of better budgets. Usually a DMC will know where to go, what to do that will be within your budget. So don't necessarily come up with a set ideas, be open to options that may actually be very interesting. And also speak with us, Global DMC Partners, because we may have recommendations that we capture from other destinations on ways to reduce cost. Adding, I don't know, certainly free times in your programs, but also maybe thinking about your programs and in a different way. For instance, considering certain destinations versus others that will be more within budgets, certain time of years versus others that will mean reduced cost. So there's a lot of ways to actually work with tight budgets.
There was an interesting fact in your talk yesterday about the timelines and where that trend for large, medium to small events. And it was interesting to see that smaller events are getting shorter and shorter timelines. Do you think that that's something that we should be changing in the future and try to elongate that timeline?
Absolutely. That's what we would love. Whether this will happen or not, I'm not sure. So many decisions are being approved. Well, first of all, made in terms of organizing the meeting very late. We see a lot of companies, again, the meeting planners, they all want to work as soon as possible, but usually it's either the corporations or the third parties where the timeline is simply not there. The second challenge we see is the commitment to the program. So the signing of the contracts, which are again very often delayed. So yes, we want to change that. Everyone in the industry wants to change that. Whether it will happen or not, that's the big challenge. So learning to live in this environment and building capacity in this environment is definitely a challenge.
Yeah. And so what innovative methods does your team use to manage that escalating cost of event planning?
So, I mean, again, it's a question of prioritizing what matters the most in your program. It used to be that programs would be, for instance, very, very heavy on food and beverage. Well, the costs there have gone up exponentially. AV, same thing. Not to mention airfare, and hotels as well. So maybe considering making changes. We've seen some really interesting trends as it relates to F&B, changing menus, changing portions. And being more local versus reducing meat options. All this can help, certainly, but also offering vouchers for breakfast versus full-blown, buffet. All this can certainly help. In AV, we've seen some really creative ideas from clients. And some of which are actually buying equipment because they will use this equipment again and again and again, and it actually makes much more sense than renting it or going through an AV companies for that. So and that's a clever approach.
It's interesting to see those new sort of I'm not going to use the expression outside the box, but I just did. So, but sort of going away from those sort of traditional, this is how it's done. And, the buying of certain AV equipment that you're going to be using and using it as an amortized asset, I think is an interesting trend that's coming out of the industry right now. So, how does Global DMC Partners support planners in unexpected challenges during events?
So that's the reality. I don't think you can. I don't think that you can think of a program and build a program without expecting something to happen, something to change, etc. Again, this is all about the trust that you have with a partner. And when you work with a DMC, you actually help yourself a lot for contingency planning, whatever they are, whether it's a small change of agenda, change of program, change of speaker, etc. They can help right away, or something more serious that could be health related, etc., where they will be able to help while you continue to manage your program. So partnerships in hospitality is ultimately the secret to success. And having a DMC that can be your partner, especially in contingency planning mode, is so valuable.
Absolutely. And so one of the biggest things that we were talking about yesterday was sustainability. So how are sustainable practices integrated into the event planning process of your partners?
So, first of all, each and every one of our partners is committed to sustainability. The majority of them have some certification, but more importantly, they care a lot about their destinations. And sustainability is true all over the world. And in actual fact, in certain parts of the world, it's even stronger than in others. So each and every DMC has activities, builds activities that are extremely sustainable focused. And again, sustainability can have many shapes and forms. So what is also lovely is to see that the DMCs offer very diverse options to the clients around sustainability. So that's one thing. But what we also do is we want to make sure that meeting planners get inspired from ideas around sustainability. So we organized a webinar on sustainability, and the ideas were coming from all of our partners around the world. And we shared all these ideas on the webinar. By the way, it's available on GDP University website. It's available for free for everyone. But that's also something that is very useful to meeting planners. Sometimes you get stuck in everything you know, and you need new ideas. Right. So being able to listen to what is done, for instance, in another destination can inspire you for a program that you're managing. Right. So I think our industry is all about partnership, but it is also all about sharing ideas and inspiring yourself from someone else who has done a program similar to this, or just listening to what's happening elsewhere in the world.
I think that's a great segue into the next topic that we're going to talk about, which is incorporating CSR into events. And we had a discussion about this morning during the first session where, and forgive me, I forget who brought this up. I think it was either Linda or Tom was speaking about it.
Tom, yeah.
And I love the idea, and we'll be interviewing Tom a little bit later.
Tom Edelin, yes.
Yeah, where it's a CSR with a little bit of incentive, rather than, I think, what everybody has been doing as a trend for many years, which is, we're doing an incentive and then adding on a CSR. So how are your members incorporating CSR into their events, and what impact does that have on client engagement?
So what Tom was speaking about is exactly what you said, is really turning around. So so really putting at the forefront the CSR, so that it's not an option, it's something that is done. And this morning, as you say, there was so much interest on this subject. So what I'm getting from clients is that they have been frustrated very often in their program because people would not necessarily sign on some CSR activities. But when we dig a little deeper on this, we notice that a lot of those CSR activities are an option amongst many others. So, some people, if they have to choose, might prefer to do something else. What Tom's company is doing is actually, the CSR is the activity. It's not an option. Everybody is part of it. And because it is so meaningful, because it is so inspiring, people want it again and again every year. And then after, they dedicate the time to the incentives, to all this. What I found fascinating about what he said is that initially people may be thinking, I'm not sure I want to do that. It's part of an incentive. Why should I? But the minute they actually participate to a CSR activity, in their case, it's Habitat for Humanity, the connection they make with the local economy, the sense of we make a difference is so positive that this has been ranked in his company at the top level each and every year. So it really is, just shifting the mindset and prioritizing it. And so I believe that many meeting planners in the room are going to challenge their companies.
And that's fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah. That alone is great.
So how is AI being used to improve event planning and management at Global DMC Partners?
So we are paying such attention to AI. We actually see AI, a lot of the functionalities out there, extremely useful for meeting planners that are overwhelmed and time being so crunched, etc. However, and you could see that because we surveyed the audience, the adoption of AI is still extremely low.
Really?
I think our audience was saying 60% of them were not really using AI. Again, what does that mean? Because I believe a lot of people are using AI
They're
without
just not
knowing.
aware. Right?
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
So what we are committed to doing is helping meeting planners identify what are some AI tools that could be useful for them, and maybe creating some education component on demystifying what AI is and showing in a very practical way, this is how you can use this AI tool, and this is how it can save you time, help your productivity, and the likes.
Well, you put up an interesting visual, which I think has been going around the internet for the last month or so, which is I think it might actually be an AI generated image, but it's of an artist saying, I wanted AI to do the dishes and clean my house and not do my art.
Exactly.
And so do you think that there is some resistance in this industry because they're not quite sure, like planners and partners are not quite sure how to integrate it into doing the dishes rather than doing the art?
It's possible. I think that this is a fun, visual here. And yes, me too. I would love to have an AI that does my laundry and my dishes for sure. I think a lot of people simply do not know how to use AI. So I think that is actually more the barrier to adoption. Once you actually use it, I think it's a lot easier.
Yes.
And then again, you have to think about safety, security of data, etc. So corporations are also very attentive to the risks that it could pose to the organization. So that may also be something that is not yet fully vetted, but there are some great, Copilot, for instance, is a functionality of a solution, an AI solution that we are looking into that has extraordinary productivity gain possibility. And this is a safe environment. It's easier to implement, but until you've started using it, you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about some of the trends and the things that we might see in the next couple of years.
Yes.
But before we get into that, I really wanted to chat with you about a statistic that you shared yesterday that a lot of people in the room found a bit shocking. And so I'm going to paraphrase this, so please forgive me if I get the numbers exactly wrong. But we were looking at how many women are in this industry, and it was around 77% of the industry is female, but the disparity of how many women are in leadership positions was only 16%. So that's over a 60% disparity in that. And you and I spoke last night as we went to dinner about how shocking a statistic that is. And I'm asking, why do you think women have such a low representation in an industry that is dominated by women?
Yeah. So for a number of factors. So first of all, this statistic is based on global information. So when you think about women in the hospitality industry, there are many that you do not necessarily meet regularly. And yet they're so present in hotels, in restaurants, etc., and certainly on a worldwide basis, even more so. The other challenge is very often a meeting planner who has unbelievable diverse skill set within a corporation is still considered a cost to an organization. And we see this regularly whenever there's layoffs in the company. The meeting planning division is generally the first to go. It's not considered a strategic position. The third factor is, I think, that we do not do a good job in promoting our skill sets internally. A meeting planner is able to manage a P&L, to do contract negotiations, do employee and staff management. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of skill sets that are extremely complex to manage: contingency planning, risk management, etc. And yet, in many corporations, it's still considered an assistant position. I mean, I'm being caricatural on purpose here. So there is a need for two things. One, access to education, and there's a really good job done by SITE, MPI, etc. But even more of that, and then sharing, mentoring, and leadership, so that meeting planners feel that there are others that maybe have gone through this path and be inspired by them, and then feel more confident to raise to the next level. I don't know if you realized, Matthew, but in the room, as we were speaking about the challenges that we live, most of the feedback I received after from the clients was, this is so nice to hear, because I think I struggle with these issues and that it's my problem. The reality, it's an industry problem, such as tight budgets and the likes. So sharing those and mentorship in our industry needs to happen. I think it will help women, men helping women as well, and learning to have more confidence on the skill sets that you actually have.
Absolutely. We
spoke about that yesterday.
Yes, I was telling you the story. So my wife is a teacher, and she is going to be an administrator. That's her next career move. And I mentioned that I think it's out of 10 AQs or required qualifications, she has 9 of them. And so she was discussing with a local school board official where we live about administration positions, and there's a shortage of them, and they're desperate. And I said, you should go and apply. And she said, I don't have my 10th qualification. And I stopped her and said, if you were a man, you wouldn't care. You would just and to be honest, most men will have 4 of those 10, and they will apply for the job. So I try to encourage my partner to say, you don't have, it's progress, it's not perfection. Yeah. Right. We need to. I try to encourage any woman I know who is interested in leadership and has these amazing skill sets. That if I, how they used to do auditions at the symphony was they started putting a screen up because there was an inherent bias in those auditions. And so when we have people apply for positions, we try our best to screen that to the rest of the team. I may know that it's Julie Smith and Greg Barrow, but I take names away and I just ask the team to look at their skill sets. And 9 times of the time, they will pick the female candidate because they are meticulous in detail. They have those amazing skill sets. But if we sort of take away that, on the hiring side, if we take away the inherent bias like they did in those auditions, then it's fascinating to see. But I also wonder how we encourage women in this industry to capitalize on those skill sets and not overpressure themselves to be perfect before you step in the room.
So first of all, what you refer to, there's a lot of data out there proving exactly your point, unfortunately. And as a woman myself, I can tell you, especially when I was younger, absolutely. I would think if I didn't have all the qualifications, I was a fraud.
You're right.
So this is definitely a mindset that you have to shift, and that sometimes maturity helps you to shift this. But in order to change that, I think we need to have meeting planners get inspired or mentored by others, see that in many instances they actually have the skill set that they think they don't,
right?
And also that without having all of them, let's say you still are not super comfortable with finance, and that actually is the element that differentiates in terms of a career move very often, the meeting planners. A lot of meeting planners feel that financially they're not strong enough. And so to some extent cannot have a conversation with a CFO or a CEO on budgeting, etc. With a little bit of education and a little bit of inspiring from others, that's it. That's all they need.
Right.
Because the reality is they do have a lot more finance skill set because they manage P&L better than anybody else.
It's amazing. Like I will say that when I started my business, well, this is my second business, but I started my first business, I was completely financially illiterate.
Right.
That business failed. And I think culturally men are almost encouraged to fall off the edge of the stage and get back up, use that as a learning experience and move on. But culturally, I think we as a society have not done a great job of having the same attitude towards women who, when they fall off the edge of the stage, we go, you shouldn't have done that. And I think we need to change that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, women often have responsibilities for the families as well. So the risk element, we can be more resistant to risk because we're thinking the children, if we have, or the family, etc. I mean, even from a statistical standpoint, a lot of women, again, can be alone. So lots of responsibilities. Are you going to take a risk? In this case, it's difficult. It's extremely difficult. So we need to encourage risk-taking because it brings opportunities without feeling that when you take it, you risk losing it all for not just you, but your family. So
sure.
That's.
But again, I think that applies to men as well.
Absolutely.
But there's this, and I think how do we communicate to women in this industry that this industry is their safety net? That, the same way that we encourage, like, don't worry, if you're going to fall off the edge of that, somebody will catch you. That we say that to women in the same regard, so that they are willing to take those risks.
So, I mean, when you look at this room and the talent pool of this room, but the networking as well, the caring that goes on, it's easier to take a risk when you have a parachute.
Yes, absolutely.
And a parachute can have many forms. It can be a financial, it can be all kinds of things. But knowing you have a network of friends that are here that will help. Should you fall, they'll be there. Should you succeed, they'll be there. I think makes a big difference. And maybe that's where we need to go more.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do your personal values influence your leadership and vision for the events industry?
So one extremely important value to me, and it seems it's very difficult to implement, but it's work-life balance and prioritizing family time. So this is something in our industry, again, that is very difficult. When we are on a program, when we are dealing with clients that are on programs, Sarah, we're very, the time it takes different forms, but making sure that we take this into consideration. So for instance, we used to have offices during COVID. Of course, we stopped that. But then I asked the team after, do you want to go back to offices or want to continue to work from home? And unanimously, they wanted to continue to work from home. And it was easily implementable. That meant we changed our business model a little bit. We do meet more often as a group because we need to meet. There are so much values in meeting face to face. We would know that in our industry. So definitely this, but also a policy that if anything is happening in your family, you don't need my approval to take time off, etc. You're empowered, and you take as much time as you want. So these little things are very, very important. If we are working, on programs or something, we will be very much on. But when it's a little more normal time, on weekends and after hours, if there is an urgency, we'll pick up the phone and call. You don't have to check your emails all the time.
Yeah.
We insist on doing this so that you have this time off that is not work related. So we try as best as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's an enormous shift that's happened in the industry since the pandemic, that there was less of the forgiving nature of that. And it's certainly a positive sign that I think it's made amazing strides to reduce the burnout that happens in this industry.
But Matthew, I'm concerned that it's coming.
It's coming back.
It's coming back, and I'll tell you, many clients come to us and share the extreme burden. So we need to be very, very careful about this. We have a client who just went some health-related and issues, and she has to, and she has implemented a shift, and it's not easy because as meeting planners, we're always saying yes, we're always available.
Very true.
So it's difficult. It's not easy. So again, the more we share what we're doing to try and avoid this, always saying yes and being over burdened, the better it is. And then it's up to the leaders to say, well, this is how we will work, and make it more manageable for the employees.
Absolutely. So, is there anybody you are looking forward to meeting here at Connections, and why are you so interested?
So, Matthew, each and every person that is in this room is a guest that we invited because of the terrific value that they bring to the industry in general, whether it's our partners that we have such strong relationships, the clients that have. It's just lovely to meet them and to share best business practice, because we learn so much from their feedback as well. Same with the DMCs. And honestly, my team is just, we don't meet face to face enough as far as I'm concerned. So I just love this time. And someone like you, as well. It's rare that we meet. So I couldn't point to one person because it's everyone that I am so thrilled and feel so privileged to be able to meet face to face in that setting.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Catherine, for joining me once again on the podcast, and thank you again for the invitation here to beautiful Punta Mita.
And the Conrad Hotel.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Punta Mita, I fell in love with these destinations. And obviously, Anna from Tropical Incentive, she's the one who built this program, obviously with my team, Stacy and Aaron.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is when in our industry, we fall in love with people. Anna, you fall in love with Anna, and then you follow her vision of the program, and you let her make it happen, and it's beautiful.
Excellent. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Production Value Matters, the business event podcast, is brought to you by Byrne Production Services. To find out more about Byrne Production Services and how putting on events can drive value for your business, visit byrneproductionservices.com. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And on behalf of the team here at Production Value Matters, thank you so much for listening.